Well, I'm so excited to be with you guys this morning. And I really hope you took the time to write down some gratitudes. If you guys want to put in the chat box, what are you guys grateful for this morning? Because, in conquering fear, which is our biggest challenge, right? Fear and gratitude cannot coexist in the same space. So I hope you guys took time to write those gratitudes. I know that for me, my husband and I had COVID last month, and I don't get sick ever. And my husband got really, really sick, which was kind of scary, turned into pneumonia, but I got really sick. And so I'm finally starting to feel a lot better. And you don't realize how sick you were until you start feeling better. And so I'm so grateful for my health this morning. So I hope you guys wrote down those gratitudes. I want to ask you guys a couple of questions. First, how do you think and how do you feel when you hear the word discipline? And the second part to that question is, what do you tell yourself? What's going through your mind when you think about your own personal discipline? For me, I grew up in this really weird environment. As an early toddler, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but we were about the first house in Bloomington down in St. George. So if you get off that Brigham Street, which is the last exit going south, there's that Chevron just on the east side of the road. That was a petting zoo. And our house was just a little bit further south in a cul-de-sac. And we were about the only cul-de-sac in Bloomington at the time. So my dad developed Bloomington, was in real estate, moved north. He developed Colonial Square in Park City, worked with Ellis Ivory, came to Kaysville and built a home that was 11,000 square feet, had a racquetball court. My dad is a big BYU fan, which is why I graduated from the U, of course. But he had this house, this huge house shaped as a Y. And in the early 70s, it cost him probably over $700,000 to build this house. And you have to understand the neighborhood that he built it in, the homes were worth $30,000, $40,000 at the time. And so, of course, to make a statement, my dad made a lot of money back then, but he lost a lot more than he ever made. And so we move into this humongous house in this neighborhood. So we're like the rich kids, right? So on a regular basis, it does something to you as a child when your mom, your older sisters are constantly talking about, you're going to lose your house. We actually lost our house several times before I graduated from high school. We moved out and then somehow my dad would get us back in it. And my dad had a lot of questionable business ethics. And it does a lot of weird things when everyone thinks you're rich, but your parents have nothing. I knew that not only did I not ask what I wanted, but I didn't even ask for what I needed. I knew that there was no money for lunch money. I knew my parents didn't have any money. And so we had this aunt who passed away last year. She took care of us. Her husband was a vice president for ZCMI. I mean, you haven't heard that name for a really long time, but we always had nice clothes. She would buy us food. I don't know what we would have done without our aunt. So my discipline comes from this deep fear. And, now I've evolved and I'm, more motivated by other things, but I still, have this drive by fear because of what I experienced growing up, that fear of loss. I never wanted my kids, my family, myself to ever have to experience that kind of, loss of security and never really feeling secure in anything. And I have this weird relationship with money. I hoard money. It's really hard for me to let money go because of this weird relationship I have with money. And, we look at fear and we look at what we've been through during this whole pandemic. You're either driven by fear or you're crippled by fear. And one of the best books I've ever read, it's called The Fearless Mind. It's by Dr. Craig Manning. And if you're struggling, that is a great book. to put on your next to-do list on your reading. Here's a quote. I've always known it, and I can't even remember where I got it. But if life is a performance and our success depends on our ability to perform, and it also depends on our discipline, how do some of us conquer the fear? Conquer the fear during this pandemic, all the political stuff that's gone on this last year. How did they conquer the fear and achieve at really high levels, while others really, really struggle and they're crippled by it? The best definition I ever found for discipline. So you've heard this before. Discipline is the ability to focus on the job, the task, the activity, regardless how we feel, right? We've heard this before. It's the ability to focus regardless how we feel. That's our discipline. My daughter is graduating from college in a couple weeks, and she works as a CNA right now. And she says to me the other day, Mom, I'm waiting for someone to come cover my shift. And like, they don't show up, like they don't call, they don't try to cover, like they don't show up. Like it's so beyond her realm of thinking that she can't hardly stand that someone would not show up for their job, right? And in our job, the key is, how do I show up? Because we don't have to, right? So how do we show up? I have just a couple of thoughts. There's 4, right? So number 1, what is our desire to change our life? Is there something about our life, whether it's our business, our health, a struggling relationship? Like, is there something that we have a strong desire to change? You guys, we are one decision away from changing our life, right? But we have to have a desire. We have to have passion. Like, what are we excited about? We either live or we die, right? So what drives us? What motivates us? We listened to Deanna Haskett last week, and I love Deanna. She's one of my, I consider her a dear friend. And she talked about door knocking, but I remember door knocking with Deanna, her first time door knocking. We went together, and I don't remember exactly, but I remember a man inviting us in, and he had a bunch of properties, and he didn't really like the agent that he liked. And I still remember Deanna's ease at talking with people, just having a conversation. And when she talked that day, I have another agent in my office who's been in the business 15 years that has never knocked a door ever. And because of Deanna last week, she went out that day and door knocked. And she was struggling in her business. And she got 2 great leads because she was so motivated, inspired by Deanna. Find something that motivates you. You've got to have a desire to make a change. That's number 1. Number 2 is, what is your commitment, right? What is your commitment level? How focused are you? I think of a crying baby. You guys, I am a new grandma, and I have to show you because she is so dang cute. But she is my new excitement in life, and she is the joy of my life. I raised 2 kids that, I barely survived through. I'm not a baby person. I don't ask to hold babies, and I love this baby. But anyway, when a baby cries because they're hungry, right? If they're hungry, we don't say we don't feel well today and we'll just feed them tomorrow. Hopefully we don't. Hopefully the commitment, the priority is high, and the excuses are none, right? Because the commitment and the focus is so high on that baby. We don't say, I think I'll run to Costco real quick before I feed the baby. We don't say, I think I just need to, do the dishes real quick. No, our commitment level is so high to that baby that we focus on the job at hand, right? We are so disciplined because our commitment is so high. And the third thing is your belief. What do you believe? How do you believe? Do you believe it's possible that you can reach your goals? How much do you believe in yourself, in your ability to reach those goals? I think of Jessica Terry, and I was going to call Jessica Terry before this, but I still remember when she spoke in Summit. It was a couple of years ago. I met Jessica when I first came to the company about 6 years ago. And from what I understand, she was in real estate before, and then for a period of time, she was not. And then about 6 years ago, she rejoined Everest because her husband was very sick. And I will never forget what she said at this summit 2 years ago. She said, I was not going to allow my family to suffer financially. I'm not going to allow it. Like, her belief was so high, her commitment level was so high, her desire to achieve was off the charts. There was no question that she was going to succeed, and she has killed it, right? And Jessica's the kindest, most gracious. I would see her these 4 years before I knew what was even going on with her. You would never know there was anything wrong. Like, it's crazy. When I heard her speak at Summit, I mean, it was just so inspiring. She was not going to allow for it, for her family to suffer. So it comes to our number 4, which is not always a most popular topic, which is accountability. So I would dare say Jessica was being coached back then, but I'm not sure if she needed that much more accountability, because her desire, her belief, her commitment level, her focus, it was so razor sharp. You know, this is why we're constantly working on our mindset, right? You know, there's been times in my life where, you guys, when I joined the business, I was kind of a freak. I was on the phones by 7:30 every morning, and I was going to call those expireds and be the first agent to call those expireds. You know, I was so driven, mostly by fear back then, but I was committed, I was focused, I had a high belief in what I was doing. And so, you know, back then there wasn't the coaching. This was 30 years ago. You know, there wasn't the coaching. I didn't have really any other accountability, but I didn't need it every day. You guys, there are days, there's times in my life where I'm paying $1,000 a month, $1,000 a day to get me on the phone, right? But it just depends. What is your desire? What is your commitment level, your focus, and your belief? We go through different times in our life. We have to set up accountability for those times when our mindset is weaker. We all go through these times. There's times in my life where I have been at the gym 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm there for 2 hours every morning, 5 to 6 days a week. And I don't need any accountability, because all my mindset is so razor focused. But you guys, there's times in my life where I'm getting a gym buddy. And not only that, I'm paying them $100 a morning or whatever to get my butt to the gym. Like, it depends on your mindset. What kind of an accountability do you need to set up for yourself? So I talked to Brian Burnett, who we all know out of our St. George office, made close to $2 million last year. You know, everybody kind of considers him a machine, right? Oh, you know what, that Brian, you know, I'm just not that kind of an agent. And then we look at like a Doug Carey, who I know he's going to break that million this year with what's going on with him right now. But I texted Brian over the weekend and I just said, Brian, what kind of accountability do you have right now? And what's the goal that's linked to the accountability? And I love Brian because he's so short and to the point, which I so appreciate. But he says, no current accountability, 2 appointments a day. That was the text back. So the thing that you can learn from Brian, just in that text, is that Brian keeps it simple. We overcomplicate this business to a point where we drive ourselves right out of it, right? So I text Brian back and I said, so do you continue to prospect after you get your 2 appointments? So like if you set it in 20 minutes, do you keep prospecting? And of course the answer was 4 hours minimum every day. It doesn't matter whether he sets the appointments right away, he prospects for 4 hours every day. Now, Brian pays for coaching, so he does have accountability. So you look at someone like a Brian Burnett. I mean, I have agents and have known agents that have done one deal that don't think they need the coaching. They've already learned everything they can that they need to about real estate. And you look at a Brian Burnett who's still in coaching, still growing, still learning, and he's the nicest guy. You know, so many of us view people that prospect, you know, I don't want to be that mean, aggressive salesperson. Guys, only the way, like you look at a Brian and a Doug, and they're the kindest, they are the nicest people that you will ever meet. And that's why people want to work with them. They just talk to a lot of people. The only way you're going to sound mean and aggressive is if you are mean and aggressive as a personality. Otherwise, no. That practicing, that being coachable, getting your confidence. That confidence in what you are saying is what's going to change the game in real estate for you. So talking just a little bit about what's going on with Doug and his accountability. So Doug also pays for coaching. And just in February, he's always been involved in some accountability groups. But just last February, he was in an accountability group where if he didn't make his 40 contacts every day, he was paying $800 a day if he didn't make his 40 contacts. On top of the coaching, right? So Doug has switched things up a little bit since about March. So his accountability group kind of fizzled in March because people weren't paying the money. People that weren't making their contacts were not paying the money, and no one was holding them accountable. And you guys, the only way you can keep an accountability group together is if you have somebody making sure that that money's being paid. If you're going to coach, pay for the coaching. You guys, there's something about the money that holds you accountable, right? We've tried many accountability groups in our office, and there's always a couple of people that, I just don't have the money. And, this is when you need to be accountable. Because if you don't have the money, then you have to achieve what the activity is. That's the best time to be in a strong accountability group, is when you don't have the money, because then you have to perform, right? Anyway, so Doug in March, he has changed his focus a little bit. His contacts are down for the first time. I've never heard Doug say that he's dropping his contacts to focus more on a quality conversation. And he's prospecting 4 hours minimum, but he's not worrying so much about the contacts as he is about having, focusing on a more qualified conversation with people, more follow-up, better conversations with his database, his sphere of influence, his past clients. The other thing Doug is doing right now, especially because of the market that we're in, is he's controlling his buyers. So I'm constantly, Doug, how many buyers, right? How many listing appointments? One buyer, right? In this market, he's got to focus. We've all got to focus on listings, you guys. He's seen a huge improvement in his business. He's already taken 7 listings this month. He's already done twice, even more than that, what he's done any other first quarter of any other year. So I'm looking forward to seeing big things from Doug this year. The other thing I want to mention is Doug is on a 12-week plan. I think for, mental mindset issues, instead of looking at an annual plan, think about doing a monthly or a quarterly plan. Because I think if you have a bad month or you have a bad quarter, it kind of defeats you mentally a little bit. So think about doing like a monthly or a quarterly plan. I know that when we started Franklin Group back in the early 90s, sorry, when did we start it? There was 8 of us that started the company, and we all had teams. We would do 500-600 plus deals a year between the 8 of us. We would meet every week and do a weekly goal sheet, and we would hold each other to our goals. And I credit that a lot to the production that happened back then, because I know that it's a very powerful thing. Like when you're writing in your journal, maybe making a point to do a weekly plan. Set your intention, your goal for the day, but also look at your weekly plan. What are your intentions for the week, right? All right, I was going to see if there's anything else I wanted to say other than, depending on where you're at in your life, that's going to depend on what kind of accountability you need to set up for yourself. And so I want you guys to get out a blank piece of paper, and I want to give you just a quick activity that I think will help you simplify things. Don't overcomplicate this business. I'm never going to say it's easy and it's difficult, but it's simple. We have so many options out there that we make it way more complicated. Simple. So at your blank page, the first thing I want you to write down at the top is business/finances. And then skip like 6 or 7 lines and put health. And then skip 6 or 7 lines and put relationships. And then skip 6 or 7 or go to another page and put contribution, giving back. And I want you to spend some time on this. I know you're probably not going to have time to do it right now, but I want you to think of one goal in each area, one thing that could change your life. If you did it, and if you were struggling, you found an accountability to make sure it got done, right? So for example, in our business and finances, maybe the goal is, I know that if I prospect for 4 days a week, 2 hours a day, it would change my business life. It would change everything about it. So put that. Maybe in your health section, it's, I'm going to drink more water. I'm going to drink a gallon of water a day, or I'm going to walk 4 or 5 days a week. I'm going to go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week. The one thing that you want to do for your health that will change it. And then same thing for relationships. If you have a struggling relationship, schedule, you guys, if you want to mend a relationship with a child, or you want to mend a relationship with a friend or a significant other, like, write down specifically what relationship, and then how much time are you going to devote to that? Are you going to devote 2 hours a month, 4 hours a month? And then you got to put it in your schedule. It takes time, right? It takes time to prospect. It takes time to do your health. It takes time to mend relationships. And then the fourth thing, which is contribution and giving back. If you have a desire to give back, the homeless, your kid's school, whatever it is, a charity that you're passionate about, it's a nice thought, but if we don't schedule it in and decide how many hours that month we're going to devote to that, and we don't put it in our schedule, life is busy for all of us. It doesn't matter, some of the busiest people I know that are out there trying to write offers in this market, that are crazy busy right now. We all get too busy, and we have to focus on all areas of our life. And the second piece of this is not just writing down the general goal, but for example, on your prospecting, when are you going to schedule that 2 hours, 4 days a week? Time block it in your schedule. So when? The second piece of that is, who are you going to call? 99% of the time, you do not do the prospecting because you don't know who you're calling. Pull your list the week before. I always say, do your schedule, pull your prospecting list on a Thursday, because nobody's going to do it on a Friday. And Monday, it's too late, right? So on a Thursday, pull all your prospecting for the next week, except for maybe some of the active listings that are already sold. You're going to have to pull those. But everything else, you can have who you're going to call from your database, who you're going to call for, what expired you're going to hit, what door knocking areas are you going to go to. Take your buyers. Rob Oki talked about this yesterday. Take your buyers and go find them a house. I was hoping I was going to have time to role play today, but I'm not. They are role playing at the Elevate event today. If your excuse for not being to the Elevate event today and tomorrow is money, then I would really encourage you guys to be there, because they're going to role play how to set the appointment, how to ask great questions. Because I gave my kids, when they were pretty young, the book Question-Based Selling, because it's not just about business, it's about our friendships, it's about our intimate relationships with our kids. Like I had very shy children, and I wanted them to know how to ask questions. And they've really been able to pull themselves out of that shyness. I am an introvert. I learned how to ask 5 or 6 questions really early on in the business. I mean, I was an assistant for an agent for a year, and I would simply just call. I was licensed, I was finishing up at the U, and I would simply call for him for 2 hours a day, and I would ask 5 questions. Now there's 6, but there was only 5 30 years ago. Because I would set between 20 and 40 appointments for him every day. If you are a newer agent, or you've mostly worked buyers in this business, you guys, there's nothing you can't learn. I closed 40 transactions my first year, and I think there was only a few buyers in there. I think there was probably about 8 expireds, and the rest was cold calling. I telemarketed for a while, so I learned that real estate is a numbers game. It was more people you talk to, the more opportunity that you have. So learn what to say, build your confidence level, right? If you can build your confidence by learning what to say, asking great questions is key. And then, learning how to set an appointment. We can't assume people are going to call and want to meet with us. We have to be the professional and set the appointment. We have to learn how to pre-qualify so we're not wasting our time. We have to learn how to present to both. It's even more important right now to learn the buyer presentation, more so than ever before. But what does your listing presentation look like? Can you close? Do you ask for the close? I always say don't ask. It's that awkward, so do you guys want to list with me? You guys, you give them an out when you ask. Assume they want to work with you. Assume that you gave such a great presentation, you practice putting the papers in front of them, right? And then practice how to close, how to do the master close. If you've got someone motivated and you know that they have to sell their home and you had a great presentation and there's a time frame and they say they need to think about it, learn how to have that little extra push. Go for it. Go for the close. And the reason I do role play, I always tell my agents, the reason I do role play is because I want you to go for the appointment and then learn what to say so that you can listen. If you don't learn what to say, you're not listening and you miss something. You're at the door and you're asking questions and there's the slightest little, you guys, that's all you need to take off and build a vision for them, even if they're just starting to think about it, right? Learn how to find out what's important to them and then close with, what if Mr. or Mrs. Seller? What if we could find you that Rambler that has a big basement for all your friends? Even in a market like we're having today, because of your equity, because of the extremely low rates that we're having right now, what if it's possible for you to, and it makes sense to do it right now versus waiting? I'd love to just be that information, that resource for you. Sit down with you, figure out if it makes sense for you right now. I've got some time, either Tuesday at 3, Thursday at 4. You guys assume they want to meet with you. Don't ask them if they want to meet with you. If you find a need and you see the sparkle in their eye, go for the close, go for the appointment. And then, it's that sitting in that listing presentation or trying to get that buyer broker agreement signed. Go for it. Don't be regretful afterwards, like, I didn't even try. I didn't even ask them if they wanted to work with me. I didn't assume the close. Because when I don't set up an appointment, I guarantee you every single time it's because I didn't ask for the business. I didn't ask. I didn't assume the close every single time. So there's so much to say, but I want to just close by saying, really think about, what do you desire about changing in your life, right? What does your belief system look like? What does your commitment look like? What kind of accountability do you need to set up for yourself to make a success of this? If you feel like there's no way out right now and you're working with all buyers, you guys, you can figure this out. You can remove the ego, remove what you thought real estate was when you got into this business, remove your expectations of this business and just be coachable. Figure out how to go talk to people. The more people you talk to, the more opportunity that you have, and learn what to say so you can grow your confidence. And growing your confidence is the only thing that's going to combat that fear that cripples us. Watch the movie Inside Out. They have little cartoon characters, fear, joy, excitement, right? And I always picture fear as a little cartoon character. I put it next to me and I pat it on its knee. It's always with me, but I don't let it control what I do. And the more it controls me, the less commitment level that I have, the less belief I have, the less desire I have. I know that I've got to set up some pretty strong accountability, and I've got to work on my mindset in the process so that I can strengthen it again, so that I can build that confidence back up and I can have that drive again, and I can really go for it in this business. You guys, I am willing to help anyone. I do a role play. If you want to call me, I will role play with you. I really love this business. I love helping people realize that you can be a success in this business, that you can learn anything that you need to learn. So in that, we'll do the closing affirmations.